What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, Big Dog Brett. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, send it to your mom and them. All right, now we are officially in week 12. Golly, where does it go every single year? Here we are headed down the home stretch. A lot of teams, not much left to look at. Man, my hair is a wreck tonight. I've been sitting in front of the computer all day trying to get work done, trying to get videos edited. Had an interview with a nice gentleman. That will probably be up tomorrow. But man, where does the time go? Where does the time go? Goes by too fast. But yet, the best of the college football season, at least if you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan, is still yet to come. What a great time to be a dog. It's always a great day to be a dog, but today is another great day in the wonderful college football season. Georgia has lived the past 2 years pretty much at the top of the mountain. We've had one loss in the past 2 years. Think about that. That's incredible. Meanwhile, Alabama has had 2 this season. Sorry. Got to hand a little bit to you, Bama fans. Tighten it up. All right, so let's go ahead and recognize who we got in the chat section this evening. Pastor Dave, how you doing, sir? One of our resident members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, sir. Without you, we would not be here. If you want to support the channel, you too can become a member. Just look for the join button on any of these videos and you can become a member and support the show. There's various levels of how you choose to support. There's, I think, $1.99. I think there's like a $4.99 and there's a $9.99. So however you want to contribute, we would greatly appreciate it. We love having new members here on the show, but we also love those who have been around for a long time. And Pastor Dave's one of those guys. Feel free to email me anytime and we will have a conversation by email. And if that's not enough, then I don't know what to tell you. All right, so let's see who else we got here. Jordan Davis, how you doing, sir? Brad Pitt, one of our resident staples here. Cliff Millwood, DDP, how you doing, sir? Sons of the Edelweiss, what a unique name. He says, let's go fighting tigers. Gil Lawson, how you doing? Gil, hadn't seen you in a hot minute. P Digits, what's up, buddy? Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. What's up, people in BDB? How you doing, sir? Michael Hogue, man, this guy is always on all the channels around here. Good to see you, sir. Bulldog JC, good evening to you, sir, as well. And technically, Bama has lost 3 games this 2022 year. You are correct, sir. What's up? Let's go, Brandon. So, guys, really appreciate all support. We hit the 6,000 goal and we have cruised on past it. We're just over 6,200. Wow. Never thought I would have this many people that would want to spend their time watching the stuff I make and me. So much appreciate you guys for being here. Obviously, you guys can tell I might be a Georgia fan somewhat. I do enjoy my Georgia Bulldogs, but I also love sharing college football with all of you fine people. Well, so with that said, if you would be so kind, please help me get to 10K. And the only way I can do it is if you guys share it. This beats the YouTube algorithm. It gets me to places that I've never been before as far as how does this thing called? What do they call it? The analytics gets me into different locations of the interwebs, as it were. Yeah. So share. All right, guys. As usual, what's up, Johnny Bolton? As usual, we always have lots to talk about here at the Georgia Big Dog Brett headquarters. And tonight, we're going to be talking about some of the college football playoff scenarios and how things may play out. So first off, let's go ahead and jump down to the rankings. There we go. But you know what? You're right. You are correct, sir. There, is that better? I'll have to fix the light later. So I didn't want that to bother you guys all show. So yeah. What's good, Whipmaster? How you doing, sir? Let's see. Brett, a Georgia fan? Oh, wait, who'd you guess that, right? So we're hanging half 100 on the Wildcats. We'll talk about the Wildcats here in a little bit. You may not be wrong, though. Ohio State, Michigan play. One's got to lose. No way they're both getting in, right? That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. So since you brought that up, let's go ahead and talk about that. What I want to do is I'm going to pull this up. And I'm also going to pull up Ohio State's Michigan schedule as well. And then we'll come back to, I got like 50 tabs open, guys. I'm sorry. So, oh, you're right. You're right. So let's see here. Share screen. Wake up. Oh, TriStar wants the link. We'll give you. We'll get a link out here in just a few minutes, man. Just a few minutes. Okay, so let's look at the rankings for Week 12. Here we go. Okay, as you guys can see, or maybe you can't see, Georgia's ranked number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, and Tennessee 5. Now, there's definitely going to be some talk about how these schedules play out. They both have 2 games left, or 1 game each, however you want to say it. This coming up weekend, and then they play each other on the 26th. So Michigan has to play Illinois, who's not great, and Ohio State has to play Maryland, who's not great. So this really isn't going to change. Both of these teams are likely to win these games. So what we're going to end up seeing is they're probably not going to move around. You're probably going to see them stay at 2 and 3. Georgia's likely going to win. Tennessee is likely going to win. TCU, that may be a different story. So TCU has a couple of interesting games coming up. Baylor, I think they beat Baylor, but Baylor's not a bad team. Baylor was actually pretty good last year. Iowa State, not a great team, but they've done okay at times as far as their defense goes. It's going to be interesting to see how TCU stacks up against that. TCU is averaging a little over 40 points a game. However, Iowa is only allowing about 16 points a game. So we'll see how that pans out. That could be an interesting game. TCU, I think, wins. And then we have Tennessee. Tennessee has Vanderbilt or South Carolina? South Carolina and then Vanderbilt. They should win both of those games. They really should. Now, would it surprise me if South Carolina beat Tennessee? Yes, that would stun me. I would scratch my head for a month. What do you say? What did I miss? I missed something. TriStar here having a go. That's awesome. He said, what would you say if someone told you that they think TCU or Georgia is number 1 in their opinion? What are your thoughts? I mean, I can understand why a TCU fan would want to say that. They feel like they've had some pretty good wins this season. I feel like their conference is down. So they have played 5 teams that were ranked when they played them. So that would be Kansas, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Texas. The problem I have with them saying what they're saying as far as TCU being number 1, TCU beat SMU by 8 points. They beat Kansas by 7. They beat Oklahoma State by 3. And they've had several games where they've won by, say 10. And then they beat Texas by 7 points, and that game was 17-10. There's no possibility of them scoring anywhere near what they're scoring against Georgia, and their defense wouldn't hold up to Georgia's offense. If you wanted to make an argument for them at number 2, I could see that argument much better, but there's zero likelihood that I would rank them at number 1, and that's why. So, as you can see, this could be interesting coming down the wire. And what I want to point out is that in the college football schedule, the top 4 teams, 3 of the top 4 teams are going to play and likely have a likely have a division championship. So TCU could win their division championship. Ohio State or Michigan is going to win their division championship. Georgia's likely going to win theirs. So you're going to have 3 division champions right there. USC is sitting at 9-1, and Clemson is sitting at 9-1. Now, it's likely that there could be some changes in between Tennessee and Clemson in the next couple of games, and that could boost Tennessee up a little bit. If that happens and TCU, let's say that Clemson is sitting behind Tennessee on championship Saturday. If Clemson gets that win, golly, it's going to be pretty hard to not have them climb in the rankings simply because you're right, Mike, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's going to be hard if Clemson is close to that number 4, number 5 spot. It's going to be really hard not to move those guys up. Same thing with USC. USC is only a couple of spots away. And keep in mind, LSU is likely going to lose. So that's going to knock them down. And that's immediately going to bump USC up at least 1. If USC wins their division, if they win their conference, they're only 1 spot behind Tennessee at that point, and they win their championship. And if I remember correctly, they've got a couple of pretty tough games coming up. Yeah, they play UCLA and then Notre Dame, which are both ranked teams. I mean, that could very easily vault them above Tennessee. So, yeah. You guys be nice to TriMaster. He's a hostile environment already, man. At least the guy shows up, man. Auburn should not hire Urban Meyer. That's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Don't fall for the hype. Don't fall for the hype. All right, so that's kind of my thoughts. Initially, I'm sure we'll mix up a few more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and throw the link out here. See if anybody wants to come in here and give their thoughts. I mean, this could very well be the most interesting next 2 weeks of college football you may see in a very long time. In a very long time. I have not heard from Juan. I have not seen Juan. I have not received any messages from Juan. I have not been paged. Nothing. What's going on, Mike? Mike, you there? It doesn't say you're muted. What's up, DDP? You kind of loud, DDP.
Sorry.
That's probably just my TV. I had it turned up. I was doing some editing.
No, man, I was trying to mute stuff. I got the man. I tell you what, if anybody wants, I love this time of year. Western Michigan and Central Michigan are playing in a snowstorm that is shutting schools down, dude. I just love this time of the year, man. That's cool to see that.
My daughter's cats were trying to jump in the box. I got you, Mike. Mike back in. There you go, Mike.
Is this any better?
Yeah, much better.
Not bad. All right. So how you doing, Ty, sir?
Good. How you doing, Mike?
Tired of cold weather and snow. Bring that warm weather from Georgia up here. Or is it about the same down there too?
No, sir. Not letting it go. No, sir.
All right. Hey, I got a question. Everybody think, Georgia's a good team and stuff like that. But do you guys ever get nervous sometimes knowing how Bennett is playing in the past and like one bad game and you guys are like done for the year? Or are you like, we're not worried about it?
To be honest, I mean, you facepalm every time he does something dumb, but by the end of the game, you win in about 3 scores. So how mad can you really be? I mean, if you're used to him making mistakes, and he does make mistakes, he's a great guy. Love the guy. But when he makes mistakes, you're just like, okay, there's his first mistake. There's his second mistake. There's his third mistake. Okay, those are out of the way. Let's go kill him.
Okay.
I mean,
but you want go ahead, Brad. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
No, but you wonder there's going to be that one time to where he does, and the defense can't recover from it.
No.
take last year's SEC championship. I was hoping and praying they would have destroyed Bama last year and knocked Bama out.
Well,
I mean,
I
they
think
ended up
that
doing it
was.
in the national championship, but
I don't think Stetson Bennett necessarily threw that game away. I mean, you can blame Stetson Bennett, but Stetson Bennett didn't play a lick on defense, right?
sure.
So
But
whenever they put 33 points on Georgia, I think part of that was Georgia had a big head, kind of like what Tennessee had when they played Georgia, right?
Yep.
And they thought
that.
Georgia thought they were going to go in there and just beat up Bama, and when that didn't happen right out of the gate, that wet blanket of we just can't beat Bama creeped up in their minds, and then that's what happened. So
yep. True. And another thing I'm trying to figure out too is with Ohio State, man. I'm telling you, if their running backs are injured, which they're not in good shape right now, they might be in trouble against Michigan. And I wouldn't say it would be blowout win for against Maryland. They'll probably win this weekend. But Maryland, I mean, like if Tulua has a good game and stuff like that, who knows what could happen? And it's in Maryland also. But I'm somewhat concerned with the running game for Ohio State right now because of the injuries.
Well, I mean, we still got a pretty good ways to go, and I don't know a lot about their situation as far as the. Hang on, my computer's acting up. I don't know a lot of their injury situations. I really haven't dug into that, so I don't know for sure. But I mean, it's possible they could be pretty healthy by the time we play them. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. So
if in fact we do get to play them.
Mm-hmm. And are you on the? I mean, I know you're Georgia and stuff like that, but what's your take about TCU? Are you giving the respect, or you think they're a fluke?
Oh, I think TCU's got a good football team. I question whether or not they would be able to maintain this kind of win record in the SEC, especially in the SEC East this year. And typically, the SEC West is pretty strong. This year, it's the SEC East. So, what's up, 225 girl? Yeah,
I think. Sorry.
I think 225 girl's got a good point. She's like, I've been patient this year with Stetson compared to how I was with him last year. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I absolutely tend to agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yep. My daughter's cats are down here jumping in cardboard boxes, and it's about to drive me crazy.
Where's your dog, Brett?
What dog?
Oh, you don't tell me it's a dog-free house.
Yeah, we've had dogs, but the thing is that if I'm at work, my wife's at home with a 2-year-old and sometimes a 4-year-old, and it's not easy to let a dog in and out. We don't have a fenced-in yard, and it's kind of it's a whole deal, and we just don't have we're not set up. We're not set up for a dog. Cat, not a problem.
Yep.
Dog, problem. DDP, you still there, man?
Yeah, man. I'm still here. I'm just listening.
No, add your 2 cents.
Don't want to dominate.
Throw your 2 cents in.
What's that?
Throw your 2 cents into what I was just talking. We was just talking about.
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm a Bulldog, nation. I'm originally from Georgia, from Warner Robins, and I think I'm in a camp with a lot of us. Me and Brett, and a lot of us that we were not happy with the decisions of Stetson starting, and getting the amount of playing time he has in the past. But you can't deny that, he's got a national title under his belt, and he's definitely playing better this year than he has in the last year and a half.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, so let me throw something out at you guys real quick. So last year when Stetson Bennett played, he had one game at 72 yards, one game at 151 yards, one game at 161 yards, one game at 105 yards, and then one game at 213, and the rest were all higher. But if we look at this year, he's only had one game that was anywhere near that, and that was the Auburn game where we threw for 208 yards. every other game, he's thrown for at least 250 plus in every game.
That's impressive.
Okay.
He's had 1, 2, 3, 4 games where he is over 300, and there's 2 more games where he's at 289 yards in passing. So,
okay.
Stetson Bennett, I mean, we can talk about how we shake our head at some of his decisions, but what you cannot deny is how his performance so far overall.
Absolutely, and again, I agree. I'm a guy that when I watch the game, I'm not happy. Like my wife cannot watch the games with me, just because I'm that crazy. But we know he can make mistakes. He throws into double coverage a lot.
Well, and to be fair, one of the things that I look at is whenever you see Stetson Bennett throwing into double coverage, it's not that he's worried about throwing an interception. He trusts his guys.
Right.
And whenever we had Jake Fromm, there was times when I was like, throw the ball, trust your receivers, let him go after it. And it just seemed like he couldn't. So I was going to say,
I'm sorry, Brett. I'll just say this. I listen to a lot of different other shows and a lot of non-Georgia people, and they're talking about how he's got a rag for an arm. He can't throw the ball downfield.
Well, let's be transparent and let's be fair. There is a difference between not being able to throw the ball downfield and just not doing it. For instance, I've got a Father's Day picture this year where I've got all 4 of my kids on my shoulders. I can carry all 4 of them. And I do that because I want my kids to look back one day and say, my dad in his 40s could hold all 4 of us, right? It's not for me. It's so they can look back and go, it doesn't impress them now, but it will when they turn 40,
Yeah. I'm going back to last year. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, yeah. So he threw some bombs last year too, but we'll get into that. But here's the thing. Yeah. Just because I don't walk out of the house and do that every day doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means I don't.
Right.
Well, you have to remember, I was going to say, you kind of have to remember Stetson's kind of a secret weapon. Does he have the fade? If he's got the fade haircut, then he's going to be balling out.
Right?
Because at that point, he ain't Stetson Bennett, he's Staquavius Bennett.
Aquavius. Now here's the other thing. Hold on, DDP. I gotta correct Isify. Isify, I love you, man, but turnovers are not an issue for Georgia if we're winning by 3 scores. Turnovers are an issue if they're costing you games. If they're not costing you games, it's not that big of an issue. Now, is it a concern? A little, but there's been multiple games where Georgia's turned the ball over 3 times and still won by 3 scores. So I'm not necessarily mad about it. Now, I do want to point something out real quick before I forget. I already done the math. If Georgia shuts out Kentucky, which I think we would all agree is possible, if Arkansas can hold them to 13 points, I think Georgia could shut them out. I'm not saying it's a given. I'm saying it's possible.
6.
It's possible, right? And I'm pretty sure Georgia can shut out Vanderbilt. I'm not even worried about that game, right? So if Georgia shuts out the next 2 teams, which is possible, that will give us a normal season, regular season, of only allowing 9.6 points per game.
Wow.
And
here's the other thing. So if Georgia allows, let's just say 12 points in the next 2 games, 12 points, we divide that by 12. That would put Georgia at 10.6, the absolute same as last year.
Right. Yeah.
So basically what you're looking for is either, at 14 points will pretty much be the same stat. It'd be like 10.7. Think about that. That is a Georgia defense that most people can't name any rock star player on the defense other than Keely Ringo and Jalen Carter. And we're missing a guy.
Yeah.
Missing Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith is the strongest part of that team, and he's been out with a torn pec. Georgia seems to not even have missed a lick. So
Dude,
Well,
bro,
that just speaks to Kirby Smart and his recruiting.
dude,
I don't think it's just the recruiting. I think it's the coaching as well. I think Jimbo Fisher is the exact epitome of how coaching matters, not just recruiting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally agree. And that's why, all year long, even before the season, everybody was like, oh, Georgia's, we lost, 15, 16 guys to the draft.
I think it's 15 and 11 on defense or something like that.
I never heard anybody take into account is that how many snaps did Jordan Davis, take last year?
He
It was
actually didn't play nearly as many as people think.
It was like 50%. So,
Because Kirby always rotates guys.
So again, the guys that are starting this year, they saw a huge number of snaps last year, and they're 4 and 5 stars.
Well, here's the thing here's one of the big things that I love about what Kirby Smart is doing is it seems like you're getting that no-name defense. You're getting that no-name offense, right? Last year, everybody was looking around going, why are we throwing to George Pickens? It was because George Pickens didn't want to risk injury. But you're trying to figure out what happened to, you used to be able to go, it's Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith is killing everybody. And if you look around the league, that's kind of what you see for most teams, right? So from Alabama, you were looking at Bryce Young, Will Anderson, right? You're looking at Tennessee, Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and I think it's Mondo Tillman or whatever.
Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy.
Cedric Tillman, excuse me. Right. Those are players that everybody, those are the best players on the team. It's hard to say that there's any players on Georgia's team that substantially separate themselves. Yeah. Georgia's 4 running backs, you can't tell the difference between them as far as yardage, right?
Joe, I was going to say, because I seen his question, the high is only 37 in Lexington Saturday.
Yeah, what was when Georgia? Well, yeah, but when Georgia, the last game Georgia just played, it was cold.
Yeah, it was colder in Starksville.
Yeah, it was colder in Starksville.
Yeah,
so.
there was like a polar vortex or something.
It was like 9 degrees, I think.
I think Kirby Smart and company do a pretty fine job of preparing the players for both the heat and the cold. They tell them up front when we start playing in September, it's going to be hot, and it's not just hot. It's Georgia. It's in the South. It's going to be damn hot. It's not just hot. It's damn hot. So when you go out there, what a lot of people don't know is that Georgia Stadium is actually
it's in the northern half of the state.
Orientated. It is. It's orientated to the sun. So the visitor side is always in the sunshine.
That's how it is at Neyland.
What's that?
I said that's how it is at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah. So the visitors are always getting cooked over there, and the home team is usually pretty good. You can put on a jacket and get warm. You can't take off enough clothes to cool off in the summertime.
Yeah. So I'd rather play in the cold than play in the heat.
I always say that. Yeah.
What's that?
That I would rather be in the cold because you can put more on than be in the heat because there's only so much you can do in the heat.
I will take the cold to a point. Right. But as far as being able to work outside, I can't work outside when it's super cold. I can't use my hands. My hands give me the finger.
Yeah. True.
I want to say this about Stetson real quick, if I could, before we move on.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, just because we touched on it, is a lot of people have complained, and again, I watch you and I watch Lou, and on Saturdays during the game. We get frustrated when Stetson overthrows receivers, has receivers wide open and makes a bad throw. And I want to go back to the Tennessee game. We got burnt. Georgia got burnt more than once. And what did Hendon Hooker do? He did not hit his guy. Am I not right?
Yeah, they got lucky because they were blitzing on like 75% of the plays.
Well, no, my point is, Hendon Hooker is supposed to be this Heisman, on the Heisman list. So you got a Heisman player that's not hitting his receivers when they're open. Well, Stetson does the same thing.
Well, let's
So
be
it's
fair.
just it's the nature of the beast.
Well, let's be fair to Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker this year is the same quarterback he was last year.
True.
And nobody was talking about Hendon Hooker being on a Heisman last year. His
Mhm.
numbers are a little bit better, but they're pretty much equivalent. What happened was he got two good receivers to throw to. That's the difference. Numbers are
Right.
still comparable, but because he's got receivers that can get open. What happened during the Georgia game was that they would get a matchup that they thought was favorable. That's what worked for him in the Alabama game.
Mhm.
They kept throwing Jalen Hyatt because they were getting the matchup on the same DB that
Right.
he caught all 5 touchdown passes on the same DB.
Mhm. Right.
And what happened was they would get a matchup, and that's who he wanted to throw to. But that guy couldn't get open, so he's looking, trying to find his reads. He couldn't get through his progressions quick enough because those guys were covered too.
No, I agree. And my point just was that if you have an open guy, you know, quarterbacks are not imperfect, and neither is Stetson. So when he misses a guy, we get frustrated, but that's just a part of the nature of that position. If you may have, like, we were in Hendon Hooker's face all game long, and so it forced him to do things. Stetson does the same thing. I'm glad he's playing much better, but I'll leave it at that. That's just one last thing I wanted to say about Stetson before you move on. So I'm sorry, that's just my point.
But I was trying to tie it all. I was trying to tie it all together. So what ends up happening is whenever you have a quarterback who has had multiple times in the game where he can't get a guy open, he can't throw a guy open, and now all of a sudden he's looking around because he knows he's going to have to scramble out of that pocket because he doesn't want to take a sack.
Right.
That either forces him to throw the ball deeper and make his guy go get it, which he tried a couple of times, or to scramble and try to pick up the first down. It makes you get happy feet. It just does.
Oh yeah.
So that's really kind of what happened with him.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and see, I'll say this. Like I said, I think what it was like I said, Georgia was blitzing on. I think they counted like 72% of Tennessee snaps, and he just wasn't having enough time because I mean, really, Jalen Carter. I mean, he was just bursting at the seams. I mean, that guy was a difference maker.
Oh,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah, and then when he got doubled, I mean, you got Dumas, you got all the linebackers, you got
Oh
safeties
yeah,
coming in on blitz. I mean, this is the other thing that, and I hate to go back to the Tennessee game, but I listened to the Tennessee guys, all the talking heads after the game later on that week, and it just Tennessee's delusional. I'm sorry, they were like, oh, it was just the Jimmies and the Joes, which it was. But then for them to say that it was nothing about like scheming, well, Georgia didn't out scheme, or out coach, Tennessee.
no,
And
they
I'm like,
did.
the hell they didn't. The hell they did, man. I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean,
Well, like I've said, I've said it was two things in that Georgia game: Jalen Carter and the crowd. That crowd made a difference. I think that they got overwhelmed.
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. I do want to point something out to you guys though. So since we're talking about Stetson Bennett, I want to throw some stats out there for you guys. Everybody knows I'm a numbers guy. I love stats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at most pass attempts per game, there's some guys out there you may have heard of, like Eric Zaire and Jake Fromm, Aaron Murray.
uh-huh.
So these guys have had 49, 50 plus, 65 plus. One of them was for Eric Zaire. Most pass attempts per game, and then there's a most pass attempts per season. So currently, right now, Stetson Bennett is at, where's the number? 329. So he may very likely, he's got 2 more games to go. And they're having Stetson Bennett throw, 25 to 40 times a game, essentially. Right? So let's say we split the difference and say 30 per game. If he throws 30 per game in the next 2 games, that's 60. That's going to put him at 858 career pass attempts. That will put him in 5th place in most pass attempts per career. If he plays in the college football playoff game, and then he that's not counting the SEC game. So he plays in the SEC game, that's another 30. He plays in a playoff game, that's another 30. And he plays in the national championship, that's another 30. So we'll just say he picks up a few more here and there. That's 100, right? So he goes from being, we'll say 850 to 950. He will be dangerously close to having the 5th most pass attempts ever at UGA, behind Aaron Murray, David Green, Eric Zaire, and Matt Stafford.
Crazy.
Now he will absolutely, ready for this? So he's at, what did I say he was at earlier? 328 or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's at 328. No, 329. So 329, right? So 329. And then he throws for another 60, 90, another 60. So he could potentially throw, he's got 5 more games left, we'll say. In 5 more games, he could throw for another 150 yards, right?
Right.
I mean, 150 attempts. That would put him at 479 attempts. And that's if he just averages 30, right? That would put him 40 more pass attempts per season than David Green, Eric Zaire, Aaron Murray, Jake Fromm, or any of them. So he would literally be the most passing quarterback in a season Georgia has ever had. But we don't view him that way.
Right. That's a good point. Good point.
Now, if you want to make the most pass completions in a game and you want to get on that list of like the top 5 guys to ever do it, you would have to get 30 in one game.
Go sit your ass down. What are you doing?
Now I'm gonna throw you a really crazy one. Here's a really, really crazy stat. There is a UGA quarterback that threw for 20 consecutive completions in a game. Do you know who it is?
Mike Bobo.
20 consecutive in one game.
DJ. I'm just guessing.
Who?
DJ Shockley.
No.
I said Mike Bobo back in the
No.
90s.
No. Come on, let me see some guesses. Let me see some guesses.
Let's see, Matthew Stafford.
Jacob Eason. I'm guessing.
I'm waiting.
JT Daniels.
Nope.
Well,
What, Stetson?
This guy right here. Grayson Lambert.
Oh, Lord.
Yep. Grayson Lambert.
He can
Not
throw
only-
straight.
Mike Bobo had 19, so whoever said Mike Bobo was close.
I did.
Grayson Lambert had 20 consecutive completions against South Carolina, and then he had 2 more completions against Southern University. He holds the most consecutive completions at UGA with 22.
You know what the NCAA record is?
I have no idea.
24 by T. Martin at Tennessee in 1998 against South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina's good for putting stats on, aren't they?
Hey,
We're going to do that.
Hey, Brett, I gotta.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, I gotta ask you this. I know you guys make fun of South Carolina and Vanderbilt and stuff like that, but with them, Vanderbilt, they're kind of getting back there. But do you see them maybe in the next couple of years with their head coach being maybe more successful, or do you see them being the bottom feeder of the SEC?
Well, I actually just had this conversation with a friend of mine he's a really good friend of mine. He is a South Carolina fan, diehard fan. He's from South Carolina. He grew up. He's as old as I am, so it's in his blood. South Carolina has the opportunity right now to come in second place in the SEC East next year.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, they've got to get a better quarterback. And they've got to play a little bit better defense. Now, this will be Shane Beamer's 3rd year coming up?
Yeah, it'll be his 3rd year.
Yeah.
I personally think that, I mean, people can get mad if they want to, but South Carolina is, I think, doing better than what people thought they would do this season. They're 6-4, guys.
Sure.
They're 6-4. Now they're gonna now don't get me wrong, they're gonna lose to Tennessee and they're probably gonna lose to Clemson, but they're still going to a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
They weren't having these kind of years recently.
So you trust Beamer Ball?
Do I trust Beamer Ball? Kind of.
Good point.
To a point. I think he's better than some other of the coaches that are in over their head. I ain't gonna name any names. Billy Napier. But if you go back to 2020, if you go back and look at their 2020 schedule, they only won 2 games. They didn't go bowling. They were 2-8 at the end of the season. I get it was COVID year and all this other crap, but still, 2-8. The year before that, they ended the season 4-8. So, I mean, they have been in the dregs for a little while. I mean, the last time they had a decent season was 2018, and they went 7-6, right? And they're in the final game of the year, they toted to John Hill. They got shut out by Virginia. So, do I think the program's on the way up? Well, it would certainly appear so. Now, granted, they got beat by Georgia. Everybody's getting beat by Georgia. They take an inexplicable loss to Missouri. I still say Missouri's defense is better than what they give them credit for. And they take a loss to Florida. Okay. Now they're probably going to lose to Tennessee because Tennessee's on a high year, and they probably will lose to Clemson. But this is a much better performance than what we've seen out of them in the past. The other problem that they have, now think about this. I kind of think South Carolina is this good in spite of Spencer Rattler. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's done well. He has more interceptions. He has more interceptions than he has touchdowns, and he's been sacked 23 times. And the guy's supposed to be a mobile quarterback. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? He's negative on yardage. Like he's minus 151 yards. He's minus 151 yards, and they're still going to have a winning record even if they lose the next 2 games. They'll go bowling.
Right
man. I mean, that's
I'm calling it now. I think the Peckers beat the Taters.
I think you're crazy, but
call me crazy.
The problem that I have, here's the thing. So Marshawn Lloyd is a really good running back. He really is.
He is.
I mean, to be putting up the numbers he's putting up with South Carolina right now, if he was on any other reputable team, he would have probably double the numbers he has. He probably would. Like right now, let me see, what's his numbers? Where's it at? He's at 100 attempts, which if you think about it, that's about 10 rushes per game so far. He's at 556 yards. That's 5.6 yards a carry, and he has 9 touchdowns. If I didn't tell you anything else about this South Carolina team, that's all you need to know who was carrying the team.
That means he'd be a 1,000-yard rusher and have 18 rushing touchdowns.
Correct. If he was anywhere else.
Yeah. That's right now.
What's that?
Go ahead, Tristar.
Oh, I was just saying, if he was on, say, Tennessee or Georgia, he'd probably have exactly double.
Yeah, I mean, well, Georgia spreads it around so much, it's hard to say, hard to say.
No. And another thing I was going to ask you is what about Vanderbilt? Yeah, they lost 2 of the last 3 games, but I mean, they were just in a couple of quarters. Is it that maybe they might be? I mean, it was simply successful when Franklin was there, and then they fell off. But do you think they might? I mean, they're 4-6, but do you guys expect them, or do you guys before the season started to be there where they're at right now?
You mean South Carolina?
Vanderbilt.
Dude, I don't even pay it. I pay zero attention to Vanderbilt. I pay more attention to Purdue than I do Vanderbilt, and that ain't much.
No, what is? I mean, just because they've always been there, or?
Well, here's the problem. Whenever Vanderbilt shows up to a stadium, we spend about 6 hours after the game picking up protractors and pocket protectors. I'm not
I thought
worried
that was
about
Georgia Tech.
Vanderbilt. What's
I
that?
thought that was Georgia Tech.
No, Georgia Tech. It's the slide rulers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pep Boys.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, every time one of the guys I work with, he's a big Georgia Tech fan. He graduated from there. Like, okay, I understand that. If you graduate from Georgia Tech, that's impressive. That's a hard behind school.
Right.
But as far as a football team,
yeah.
why do y'all even have a football team?
Yeah.
Yep, the red one wreck.
Damn thing broke down.
But
Yeah.
I'll say this about Beamer. Call me crazy, but I could see because his dad was a legend there and he played there, he coached there early in his career. I could see definitely here pretty soon if it doesn't turn around at South Carolina, I could see him going to Virginia Tech.
Mm.
Here's what I think. I think if you're a coach in the SEC, unless it's Vanderbilt, I think if you're a coach in the SEC, you don't want to leave the SEC.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that Will Muschamp could have gotten a job at any kind of school like Boston College or Colorado or SMU or UTSA. He'd go to those places. But he was coaching the SEC. He was like, I would rather go be a defensive coordinator at a Power 5, a real Power 5 powerhouse than I had to go be a head coach somewhere else and have a bunch of headache. He would make more money as a defensive coordinator at Georgia than he would as a head coach at Georgia Southern. So
True.
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm just mainly saying because the ACC Coastal is so much easier than the SEC East.
Well, how many was it? Was it Dabo Sweeney, or was it Dabo or
Dabo was like a position coach, I think, and then he became head coach there at Clemson. He kind of lucked into it.
Well, there was somebody who said he didn't want to leave the SEC because it would be harder to get to a national title. I didn't want to leave the ACC or join the SEC because it would be harder to get to a national title. I forget who it was. UGA boy, are you there? Hold on, he's got two things up here. I don't know which one's him. You there? I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna remove this one. Maybe he'll get it figured out. To me, there's so much wrong with that particular group in the ACC right now. There's no good teams in the ACC.
There's not
other than potentially Clemson, right?
Well, but hey,
that's
why
what,
you
that's
just
what
got
I'm
to North
saying. That
Carolina?
I could.
Let's see.
North
UGA,
Carolina's just good because they have a great quarterback.
Yeah, but without the quarterback, would they be good though?
I don't think so. I mean, Drake May, I think he's that kind of difference maker.
I do. I think Drake May has made a huge impact there. How much I don't know. UGA boy, are you there now? He's having some issues with some technical difficulty.
Hey guys, can y'all hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you. We can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Yeah, I don't think South Carolina. I think they got some talent on the team, but going back to what you were talking about a while ago, they may could beat some of these teams, like maybe in a bowl game, depending on how the matchup is. But they're bad in a lot of areas. Spencer Rattler definitely ain't helping the cause. He's a pretty bad quarterback. I think he's definitely got a lot worse than Oklahoma. But anyway, I think that, they got a decent running back or two. But, they're going to have to get some wide receivers. They're going to have to get some people that can make some play makers over there in South Carolina. Otherwise, Shane Beamer ain't going to do much.
Well, the problem South Carolina has is they have some talent, right? So they have some talent. And people say South Carolina doesn't have any talent. Well, they have a little bit of talent. Not a ton, but they do have some talent. They out-recruited last season. They out-recruited Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Utah, Purdue, the Cincinnati Bearcats, TCU, Illinois. And all of those teams are doing pretty well right now. Now, that's the 2022. Let's look at 2021 recruiting.
I was just going to say this, I will agree that South Carolina has got better because they were pretty bad, man. We're talking about basic fundamentals, right? Beginning of the season, they were pretty bad.
Yeah, let's see what we got here. In 2021, they came in last in the SEC in recruiting. They got 13 3-stars and no 4-stars. Let me check 2020. 2020, they were ranked. Where's this at? In the nation. They were ranked 19th in the nation. Hell, they got a 5-star in 2020, 8 4-stars, 15 3-stars. Look at 2019, and that would be, kind of the guys that are playing now, I would guess, barring whoever's transferred. They got 1 5-star, 4 4-stars, and 17 3-stars. So they have some talent. And by the way, in those 2 years, they out-recruited Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Purdue, Miami, North Carolina State, TCU, Kentucky, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Utah, Cal. I mean, they out-recruited all those teams. So they do have some talent on the roster, but they've got some holes they've got to fill. They need to get in the transfer portal. They need to fill these gaps until they can get some real recruits in there so Shane Bieber can find these guys in high school and get them coached up. That's just what it's going to take. If Shane Bieber stays with it at the pace he's at, he could legitimately make this an 8-4 regular season or 9-3 regular season team. Good. And that would be good enough for second place in the SEC East. Next year, Tennessee loses Hendon Hooker. They lose Jalen Hyatt, and they lose Cedric Mondon.
Tennessee's in trouble next year.
Yeah, Tennessee's in big trouble next year. Georgia's not. Georgia only has like 10 seniors on our whole list of you
would actually be surprised. I'll explain. Yes, Hendon Hooker is gone, but we do have Joe Milton coming in, and he's a question mark. He does look improved from what I've seen. From what I've seen of him this year, it looks like he's actually been working on his touch because the passes he's been throwing is just ridiculously good.
Who was that? Your mic is really low.
Joe Milton.
Joe Milton?
Yeah. He's garbage.
Joe Milton's leaving.
He's done.
Well, yeah, last year he wasn't ready. I'm saying that he'll be 2 full years in the off season.
This is his 5th
he's
year.
done. This is it for him.
No, Milton's a starter next year.
I think. Well, so if correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he does. And now I don't know. Don't correct me on this. He may have an extra year of eligibility due to COVID.
Yeah, he's got an extra year.
Have you guys ever seen Pulp Fiction?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you remember the scene where Bruce Willis walks into the bar and he makes a deal with Marcellus Wallace?
Yeah.
Son, if you were gonna make it, you'd have made it by now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, TriStar, because the reason why I'm saying that about Milton is I think he was in Michigan for 2 years.
Well, I was just thinking Hendon Hooker was good he was just better at that time, and you're going to start the hot hand.
According to Joe Milton's stat page, he played in 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22.
He's out of eligibility.
Now, he only threw 3 passes in 18 and 3 passes in 19. I guess it's possible that they got some kind of red shirt and COVID and he could come back next year. But I'm just going to be honest with you. If you are a Tennessee fan, the last thing you want is another 1-year quarterback.
True.
Right.
You better go find you a quarterback who's got some time around. That you guys have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. Who's this Tavian Jackson? I seem to remember that name from somewhere.
Tavian Jackson.
He's from Indiana. What's his bio? I thought this guy was either a 3-star or 4-star.
He was a 4-star. He's been the kind of the 3rd string all year. And of course, next year we got Nico coming in.
Nico who?
Nico Iamaliava. He's the second-rated quarterback in the 23 class. He's a 5-star.
Oh yeah.
Bust.
David Jackson, I remember. Hey, Brett, I remember David Jackson from when he was at Center Grove and stuff like that. His brother played basketball for IU and stuff like that. So his dad played in the NBA and stuff. So
Arch Manning's dad is or grandson or whatever is going to Tennessee or Texas, and his numbers are terrible. So I mean, just because your grandpappy, because your grandpappy was a diamond miner, don't mean you'll be good at it.
I'm curious. I'm curious to see who's all going to hit the transfer portal at the end of this year.
There's actually, I actually found out some news about that. As soon as the transfer portal is open, Texas A&M's boosters have already reserved the first 50 spots.
I heard. Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be a mass exodus from A&M also.
Absolutely, that's what I'm talking about. Texas A&M is going to lose.
Oh, yeah.
Their players are probably. They just had the #1 recruiting class. I understand you want to stock up, but they shouldn't have issues. I think it's bad coaching.
To coaching.
Well, here's the thing.
Bad coaching.
Granted, it's bad coaching. They don't have a coach they don't have a coach being interviewed. They're likely going to have this coach for another year after this year. Like next year is going to be another bad year. Like they're not. If 90 million is too much and 80 million is not, come on, guys. No, there's no way. They're going to keep Jimbo featured. They should fire him. I hope they do fire him. I hope they find the money. And if 90 million is too much, I'm going to say 80 million is too much as well. Right?
That's the only thing saving Jimbo, it was the contract extension, which was stupid.
I think Jimbo's trying to get fired. I think he wants to go on vacation. I think if you get a $90 million handout, I think you should retire. I think you win. You win. You're done.
My whole thing about Jimbo is way before A&M. And look, we can say what we want, but 2014 and up, Jimbo has been garbage. What went wrong? Did he need just Jeremy Pruitt, Florida State, to win a natty? I don't understand. From 2014 and up, he ran Florida State down to the drain.
Yeah.
Texas A&M is terrible. They're worse than Auburn. And, that's all you need to know. In my opinion, they should fire Jimbo now.
They should, but that $90 million is a lot of money. Let me throw
85 million.
86 million is buyout. There's 76 million. It goes down to like 10 million each year after this year.
I'm gonna throw this out there for you. Let me pull it up real quick so I can show you guys. So if you go back and you look at Texas A&M's recruits they had 30 recruits in the 2022 class, right? So you've got a quarterback.
Yeah.
Georgia's not gonna pick that guy up. Georgia's loaded at the quarterback position. Right. However, there's some defensive line guys that are absolutely incredible.
Walter Nolan.
What's that?
Walter Nolan.
Who else?
Well, I think if he's going anywhere, I think he's transferring to Tennessee because he's from Knoxville.
Right. So he's gone. I think he's gone. So I think that LT Overton, who was the number 3 guy in the state of Georgia, number 14 nationally, defensive lineman. His number 2 team was Georgia. He's watching Georgia over here kick everybody's ass and go to national championship games, and Texas A&M ain't making a bowl game. Okay?
Hear me?
Then you got Evan Stewart, who had all SEC teams except Texas, and he was 46 seed Texas A&M Texas. He's going to Texas. Texas is doing better than Texas A&M. One of the guys that I really wanted was Shamar Stewart. He was pretty strong on Georgia's list. Number 1 in the state of Florida, number 9 nationally. He was looking at Georgia, LSU, Miami, Alabama. So he's going to go to one of those 2 teams. And Walter Nolan, this guy right here is an absolute beast. You want to see some incredible tape? Go watch this guy. I would not be surprised if Georgia doesn't go after him. Georgia this year has absolutely shown all these defensive players that if they want them, if they want to be turned into NFL stars, go play defense for Georgia. Go play defense for Georgia, and we'll put you in the NFL. And so all of these players that got these buyouts or whatever you want to call them, and those were just the 5 stars I talked about. Those were not any of the 4 stars. That was just the 5 stars. If you want to talk about another guy that could very likely transfer to Georgia, because we're losing Darnell Washington. Darnell Washington's gone after this year.
Yeah.
Number 8 in the state of Georgia, tight end Jake Johnson, high 4-star. You don't think he's not impressed with what's going on at Georgia?
And he wants to come home.
Oh, every tight end's going to throw even the tight ends in Notre Dame. I mean, they're going to. I mean, I don't know how they feel about Marcus Freeman now, but I mean, I'm sure everybody's looking at Georgia, right? We're tight end university. I mean, and not mentioning how we are now.
Well, you know what else we're getting famous for, right? Cornerbacks.
True.
Marquez Groves Killebrew was a number 11 in the state of Georgia, 4-star recruit. Had a toss-up between Georgia, Texas A&M, and the other 3 teams that was going after him was Arizona State, Arkansas, and Auburn. Come on, guys. You think this guy's going to stick around and waste his talent at Texas A&M?
No.
He's going to come home to Georgia.
What I'm saying is, as soon as the transfer portal opens up, these guys are out of there.
Oh, yeah.
They are out of there.
But I'll say this, like I said, I think we get Walter Nolan, and of course, it's looking like because they got a crystal ball out projection for David Hobbs at 5-star interior lineman. He's projected to go to Tennessee. I think he's already been a soft commit for a while because his sister is a 24 commit for basketball, and I think we'll get him. I think y'all are getting him pinned, but imagine this: like we get Walter Nolan and David Hobbs in interior D line, and with our 2 top 10 edge rushers we got coming in, that's going to be a pretty dang good D line, especially Rodney Garner coaching.
And there's nothing wrong with being able to garner talent like this, because Texas A&M, they have an embarrassment of riches, and they are squandering these young men's talent. We can even go all the way back. We can even go all the way back to
the Kevin Sumlin era.
When we had Justin Robinson, right? We had Justin Robinson at Georgia, and we weren't using him. And I was so aggravated and upset and irritated. And I'm like, someone's like, well, he transferred to Ohio State. I'm like, okay. How do you feel about that? Good for him. Georgia did not at that time have a coaching staff that was able to get that man ready for the NFL, which is where he deserved to be. He had that kind of talent. So I was just like, he doesn't belong at Georgia, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, and the same thing is going on right now at Texas A&M. All of the talent that's sitting there is getting wasted. These young men are losing time, very valuable time. It's limited. That they're not going to be able to get back. You only get so many years that you can play in college football. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Brett, I got to ask you this. If Georgia repeats this year, do you see another mass exodus like you did last year from Georgia?
Mass exodus?
Yeah. Look how many left Georgia and went to Alabama and stuff.
What, Jermaine Burton? Who else left?
I think there was 6 or 7 that left.
We had are you talking about Georgia players that left?
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
Yeah, because we had that Brini guy, Latavius Brini, on defense. What an idiot. Went to Arkansas, man. But whatever. And then it was
Jackson. Karis Jackson could have stayed, and he would have been doing a lot better than he is now. But I understand why he went over there, but it hasn't helped him. Sometimes the grass isn't greener. I understand why he made the decision when he made the decision, but
you said Karis Jackson. You mean Jermaine Burton?
Actually, I just looked up.
Jermaine Burton's too busy hitting women on the field. So.
Hey, last year, here.
Let me tell you.
Okay, go ahead. Now I got something to tell you. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I apologize, man. I was just going to say, let me tell you what Jermaine Burton's problem is. He's a dud. He's just not good. There's nobody that can fix him. He may be in the MAC, maybe if they played tonight, right? Kent State somewhere. I mean, and that's no shot to anybody. I mean, I don't know. Matt Landers didn't really turn out too well at Toledo, but Matt you got some knuckleheads on.
Matt Landers had boat paddles for hands, man. I mean, that guy couldn't catch. That guy couldn't fall out of boat and hit water. I mean, he was just terrible.
It's like
This
throwing
is
a
out.
ball.
I don't know if you guys, how often you guys rely on Dog Nation, but I just read it. They said over a dozen players left Georgia and 5 to go elsewhere, and 5 of them actually landed at other SEC schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so last year. So this is to show you what happened to Jermaine Burton. Okay, Jermaine Burton made the biggest mistake of his career by leaving Georgia,
Absolutely.
and here's why. The guys that were around him were Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, right? That's the guys he was competing with for throws. Adonai Mitchell, James Cook is gone, Kenny McIntosh is gone, and Karis Jackson. If he would have stayed, he'd have been WR1.
Yep.
He had more yards. He had less catches and more yards than Ladd McConkey. He averaged 19 yards per catch. He had a 73-yard long, and he had 5 touchdowns. Let me just go ahead and look up what his stats are. Let me look up what his stats are right now. So
Garbage.
I bet they are.
And also, like I said, he's got a problem with putting his hands on women. So yeah.
Yeah, you can go somewhere else with that stuff. I don't want you around. I mean, just to be completely honest with you, there was it Simmons? There was a Simmons years ago that did that too. I forget what it was. Now, I didn't jump into the facts of it, so maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know, but if he did, then you need to go somewhere else. So right now, he has 27. He has 27 receptions for 375 yards. I think at Georgia he had 27 receptions for like 400, 500 yards. He has 4 touchdowns. He's the number 3 guy. We'll say number 3 guy for being targeted. 4 guy. Was they're throwing to Kobe Prentice. Kobe Prentice is getting more passes. Jahmyr Gibbs is getting more passes. Ja'Cory Brooks getting more passes. So congratulations, you're now 4th on the depth chart.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, he made that mistake, and now he's got to live with it. But, I'm just thinking, how this transfer portal is going to be next year or this coming off season. And once another team to watch out for in terms of a mass exodus is Kentucky.
Really?
You're right, Rich. I said Karis Jackson, but I meant Jermaine Burton.
Yes, Kentucky.
B. Weinman, to be honest with you, sir, we don't just dog players that leave. We dog some of the players we have. So trust me, we spread it around. We spread it around. Like I've talked. I just got through saying that. Good son. I just got through saying that I think it was T.J. Simmons or somebody years ago. I don't know if it was T.J. Simmons. There was a player we had years ago that put his hands on women. Years before that, we had players that got caught smoking weed, and I'm like, look, if you're on a team, regardless of what society says they agree with, if the rule for being on the team is don't smoke weed in the dorms, then you shouldn't be smoking weed in the dorms. You got caught. You're in trouble.
Yep.
The times that I have stood up for UGA players was, I think it was Todd Gurley years ago, got in trouble for selling an autographed jersey he had, and he gave the money to charity, by the way. Like, he sold the jersey and gave the money to charity, and then he got in trouble for it.
The thing about Jermaine Burton is, Jermaine Burton, like, he's got potential. I think a lot of it, and Brett, you may disagree with me on this now, but I think a lot was Cortez Hankton. I think he's the worst position coach ever in college football.
Who?
I mean, look at LSU. They can't even score more than 13, 14 points since he left Georgia. Cortez Hankton.
Yeah.
He was our wide receivers coach last year. Alabama's 4th best wide receiver, led the team. We had a tight end that was our best wide receiver in 800 yards last year. I mean, dude, if this was the team last year, Georgia's not undefeated. I hate to say it. They're just not. The defense is good, man, but they're just that team last year with the offense is really what Todd Monken really wants to do.
Well, yes, but here's the thing. Georgia's offense is not predicated on the deep pass. It's not. Georgia's offense is predicated on short passes that make you tackle in open space. Their game plan makes you play disciplined football for 4 quarters. And the moment that you don't play disciplined football, you see Brock Bowers running for a touchdown. You see Stetson Bennett running for a touchdown. You see Kendall Milton running for a touchdown. And then if you try to shut that down, and then Stetson Bennett is good enough to be able to burn you across the middle, throwing to Brock Bowers or Darnell Washington or Ladd McConkey. And he's threaded the needle here several games here recently. Yeah, he does throw an interception from time to time. But if you're not worried about your defense giving up more than 20 or 30 points a game, not even 30, 15 to 20 points a game, an interception doesn't hurt you that bad. It really don't. So you can afford to take those shots. And I think that's what you see out of a Georgia offense. The defense is absolutely killer. Nobody can deny that. Georgia gets you into a position that by the time you get into the third quarter, you're looking at the scoreboard, and all of a sudden you're having to go for it on 4th down on your side of the field. So that just makes it worse.
So the biggest thing that I look at Georgia, and I see that they're a complete team from top to bottom, but I really look at that defense, right? Everybody's like, okay, what's the fall off? This, that. Okay, is there going to be a fall off? It doesn't matter who plays. It's just like they get better. Like in college football, you would think after, and no disrespect to Tyke Smith, right? He's like a third stringer, if I'm not mistaken. But the point I'm trying to make, regardless of the number, is, Georgia seems like we got a laundry list, like almost close to 2 pages of injuries on defense. It seems like almost every game there's always injuries, and this team just gets better.
Yeah, hold on. I want to answer. Red Clay between my toes. He wants to know what a complementary offense is. A complementary offense is an offense that is helping the defense by producing points and preferably some possession time, while the defense does just the opposite.
Right. It's all 3 phases of the game.
Yeah. It's
best way to put it.
What he's talking about when he means complementary offense is that the best offense is a good defense and the best defense is a good offense. That's what he's talking about. So when you're talking about it's your offense helping your defense helping your offense, and not those guys trying to just play for themselves. Georgia's defense is designed to smother you to death. It is to make you desperate on 2nd and 3rd down. It's to make you do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so whenever you've got a player who's highly talented like Hendon Hooker, and he is a talent. He is talented. He's going to play on Sunday somewhere. Whenever you've got a player like that who starts to feel desperate, it is a feeling that they have not felt. Whenever they've been dominating everybody all season long, and then all of a sudden that desperation starts to creep in, like, oh snap, I'm in trouble. I've got to win this game. That's when teams start making big problems.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say real quick, it kind of made me think. There's this old Keith Jackson line talking about an Alabama defense in the 90s. It makes perfect sense for this defense. They act like it's a sin to score a point.
Well, the thing that I like about, you're right. The thing that I like about Georgia's defense is they take it personal, but they keep it professional. Very rarely have you seen a Georgia player take a cheap shot on somebody, like, I don't know, try to rip somebody's head off like that quarterback at Ole Miss.
That's like the most blatant face mask I've ever seen.
But I hate throwing one player under the bus, but I've got to say it. Kamari Lassiter, number 3. He's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not good. But he is, if you want to talk about how teams have scored in the 12s and 19s, I hate to say it, he's the main reason, because he has like at least a 15-yard penalty every game. Every time. I've seen him do it twice.
So here's what I will say about Kamari, right? Kirby Smart has more interest in a player being able to do the job than trying to take a player and getting him to the point where he can do the job, but he's disciplined on the other fronts. Kamari Lassiter, for all of his shortcomings,
Mhm.
has worked his way up through special teams, has worked his way up as a reserve DB, and has played his tail off. Now he makes mistakes, don't get me wrong, but he's a sophomore. Next year, this guy is going to be top of the food chain. He has the talent. But he has to be a little more disciplined. I agree. But the talent level is there.
Well, he definitely brings the wood.
Oh yeah.
He
And he does it at the right,
Yeah.
perfect time, right? I mean, you take last week, Georgia. Yeah, they were beating Mississippi State convincingly the entire game. I would say. I mean, for the most part. And Kamari Lassiter, he makes those plays, and I think going back to what Big Dog Brett was saying, that at the end of the day, he makes the plays. You know what I mean? Like, yes, he hurts us, but it's not really like, oh, we're going to throw one guy under the bus. You know what I mean? Like we're going to play as a unit and a team.
And so, and that's one of the things about having this what we will call a no-name defense, even though we know it's there's elite players here. These guys are able to play with that kind of intensity because you've got another 5-star, highly talented individual who's covering your 6, right? So if you go after it and you make a mistake, this other guy is there to help you. And that's a big, big difference than you being the only 5-star having to make all the plays. It puts you in a different space. It puts you in a different mind space. When you got all that talent sitting back there and those guys are flying around the field, you know you're good. You know you're good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're getting kind of late here. I'm gonna bring UGA boy in. Oh snap! Sorry, bring him back.
I'm gonna say this, Big Dog. I'm out.
Yep.
Good talking to you. Peace out.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Hey, go Dogs.
Go Dogs. All right.
Now there were 4.
And then there were 4. Been a great show, guys. It's starting to get a little late here, so it's about 10 o'clock. I don't want to do 9:30 to 10:30 anymore. That's why I'm starting at 8:30. Really appreciate you guys being here. We've got some videos coming out. Look at got his Big Ten beanie on. Let's go TriStar. So I've got a video that I'm making right now, and it'll be out probably tomorrow. A guest you guys don't want to miss with some information you don't want to miss. So I'll leave it at that. If you made it this far in the video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, hit that thumbs up for me. If you've watched more than one of my shows, you should probably go ahead and subscribe because you're probably going to be back anyway. So we'll see you guys soon. Really appreciate you guys. TriStar UGA boy, you guys hang around just a second after the show, and we'll go from there. Have a great day, guys. God bless.
Go Big Orange.
Go Dogs.